This is where you're going to die. This happened at the beginning of the year, when everything in my city is really quiet and lonely because everyone's on vacation. It was around 4 p.m., and I got into a mall that's near my house to get some waxing done, only to find the place closed because of what I said above. I exited the place and heard a strange laughter to my left that caught my attention. I turned to see a tall man, nothing particularly strange about him, except for the fact that he was completely alone, walking in the opposite direction of where I was going. The man noticed that I looked at him, so he changed directions to head in the same direction I was going. I started to get a little nervous myself, as the man was walking behind me and continued to emit the same weird laughter, always with the same tone, like the same laugh replayed again and again. The streets were completely alone, so I started walking faster. Suddenly, the man got really close behind me, and I heard him say, "This is where you're going to die." We were in a sidewalk next to an empty lot that is used nowadays as a parking lot. Now, I got really scared, and I walked as fast as I could without running. Luckily for me, I suddenly ran into a girl that used to work with me on a candy store back in 2014. I said hi to her and immediately told her that this weird guy was following me and laughing all by himself, and I turned around to point at him. By that point, the guy had suddenly crossed the street and was quite far away now, but still staring at me. He obviously changed his mind about following me after I ran into an acquaintance. He continued to walk along the opposite sidewalk until I lost track of him. I haven't seen him again, even though I walk the same street frequently. Playground stalker. This happened about 9 years ago when I was in middle school. I had totally forgotten about it till my friend brought it up yesterday. In 7th grade, my best friend and I would walk down to her family's restaurant after school. It was about 4 blocks from the school, not a long walk at all. Between the school and the restaurant, there was a public park with a playground. Only kids from the school would hang out there. Sometimes, when the weather was nice, we would hang out at the park. If we were there for more than an hour, usually her uncle would come check on us. We did this for most of the school year. Around March, a strange man started showing up around the park, trying to talk to girls, asking them about the school or things they like to do. He did this for a couple weeks, then disappeared. We never really thought much about it. Then one day, it was just my friend and I at the park, and he shows up. He starts talking to my friend, trying to get him to go with her. She keeps telling him no. He grabs her arm and tries to pull her along. We both scream for him to let her go. Her uncle was on the way to check on us, and he heard us screaming. We can see him running towards us. He tackles the guy and tells us to run to the restaurant. We go and tell her mom what happened. Her mom calls the cops, but the guy hit her uncle and got away. The cops never found him and told us if anything else seems suspicious to call them. So, guy at the playground, let's not meet. It should have been a nice morning walk. If this doesn't belong here, feel free to remove. I moved into off-campus housing for the coming school year at the beginning of the month. And while my neighborhood isn't the safest in the city, there are other neighborhoods that are a lot worse. Also, places that are a no-go for walking at night are generally safe during the daytime. At 10:30 a.m., I left the house to go on a walk and explore the neighborhood. I headed down the main road that goes through this part of town and want to go into downtown. About a quarter of a mile from my street, I got to one of the rougher sections with some locally owned shops and apartment buildings on my side of the street, and a sketchy gas station and a convenience store on the opposite side. The gas station and store are separate businesses and separated by a side street that ends on the main road. Now, after checking traffic, I stepped off the sidewalk to get around a group of people who were standing there and watching an old building be torn down. 2 women and a man. Right as I stepped off, I heard someone shout, "Hey!" and looked over just in time to see a disheveled-looking man running across the street from the gas station. He stepped up on the sidewalk right in front of me as I got back on, blocking my way and standing very, very close to me. His clothes, I could see, were dirty. and he was missing a few of his front teeth as well. "Hey baby, what's up? What's going on? You got that from city name going on? Well, I'll be from other city about 20 minutes away, and got that going on, you know what I'm saying?" As he's getting in my face and spewing random nonsense at me at this point, hitting on me all the while, he grabs my shoulder when I try to back away and tries several times to pull me close to him, like he wants to hug me or do something else to me. "Hey, why you acting like you be scared, girl?" Grabby guy starts getting aggressive and grabbing at me. I froze, but just happened to look over and see one of the women in the group of 3 I had passed give me a look before tapping on the shoulder of the guy she and the other woman were with. The other guy saw what was going on and came over to ask Grabby Guy if he knew me. When Good Guy figured out Grabby Guy was harassing me, he started getting in Grabby Guy's face, telling him to leave me alone. Grabby Guy was still close to me until Good Guy motioned for me to step back so he could get closer to Grabby Guy, and they started arguing. Knowing that this could easily turn into a fistfight, I took the opportunity while Grabby Guy was distracted to run back up the street where I came from, scaling the whole hill in one giant sprint. I was about 3 or 4 blocks away from where the incident happened when I finally felt safe enough to stop running. When I turned and looked back, Grabby Guy was walking across the street to the gas station, staring at me the whole time. I ran the rest of the way home. Ghost condom. TMI alert mentions the existence of sex and is mildly gross, so I just moved 2k miles. For preparation, I started packing about a month before the move, so I could just pace myself and not end up panicky and throwing things in boxes at random. It was in the late afternoon, and I was just starting to put the books in my room into some boxes. They were being put in an organized manner, so that they were unpacked. I would know where they were and wouldn't have to scramble through them. The point being, I looked at the bookcase a lot before this occurred. At some point, however, I went to go get some food. I came back up to my room about an hour, maybe an hour and a half later, to resume packing up my stuff. I started finishing with the books, but stopped. On the bottommost shelf of the bookcase was a used condom. Okay, pause. First of all, I am a neat person. Not obsessively so, but enough that I clean my room about 3 times a month, and in deep cleanings at least twice a year. My trash is emptied regularly. Second of all, while I am indeed sexually active, my gentleman friend and I have not used condoms since a little bit earlier this year. As I looked at this thing, I started going through all the possible scenarios. The condom was neatly laid out, plus neither of my cats are garbage rummagers, so it was probably not them. As mentioned before, my bedroom gets cleaned fairly regularly, so I doubt some 2-month-old condom would crop up suddenly. My roommate hasn't been sexually active in a couple years now. He's also my best friend, and not prone to pranks at all. He's got the shittiest poker face on the planet. He'd totally be giving it away all the time if he was doing this. So was it a ghost? Some random that somehow sneaked into her house without anybody noticing? Who just left a used condom specifically to be found? Was it there the entire time? And my brain somehow, because of the trauma, wasn't able to process it? Was there some errant condom from last winter that a cat found and somehow laid out like some sort of gross presentation, even though they had never exhibited such behaviors before? No idea. So I threw it away. To this day, it creeps me out. On the one hand, I wish I knew how that condom came to be on my bookshelf, but on the other hand, do I want to meet somebody who would leave a used condom like that? The Brothers Buddy. Alright, let me start by saying that what many here say, this is my absolute first time posting. Now, I've been a long time creeper, but never felt a great need to post until now, so please bear with me. And any of the mess-ups I may or may not have. I really hope this belongs here. I wasn't sure if it fit with the other stories, but I'll just go for it. I apologize if it's a bit long or too detailed. I'm a bit of a detail nut, but I'll try my best. So, 4 or 5 years ago, when I was 14 years old, and living alone with my mother in a trailer my super sweet brother lent to us while stationed overseas. Father gone away to prison for a little while. After a while, we hear from my brother, 2 friends being in extreme need of somewhere to stay. Something like being flat broke after dropping college, with family unwilling to take them or something like that. My mother was wary, of course, but told my brother that it was fine, considering everything he had done for us. So these 2 guys move in with us. They seem nice enough, staying in the back room, very polite. They did enjoy their herbs, though, and you could often smell the smoke coming out from under their doors. No biggie. One night, these 2 fellows have one of their friends come over, and it just so happens he brought a female friend of mine. This girl, Jessica, is the same age as me, and these 3 are in the 19 to 21 age range. I saw her come in, but just let it be, going to my small room to watch TV. At some point, at around 1 a.m.-ish, I got bored and curious about what they were all doing back there. I worked up the nerve and went to knock on the door, really lightly. One of the boys living with us, Jordan, answered and came outside to talk. Also, just to give more information, he and I had gone, I thought, to be close, and I really saw him as a friend and a bit of a crush. Anyways, we talked about my friend, that I'd gone in with them until he asked if I wanted to go hang out. I, of course, jumped on the opportunity, being a naive, childish girl, wanting to fit in with the cool older boys. We all talked and watched Family Guy and listened to music. Eventually, Jordan offered me a sip of his drink. It was in a big cup, like the 44-ounce size cups you get at gas stations. I was told it was vodka and Kool-Aid. I was super interested, so I took a drink. It was disgusting and burned my throat a bit going down. Anywho, I was a weird kid who always wanted to know what getting drunk felt like, so I accepted any time he offered more. I was about 4'9" and 90-some pounds at the time. You can imagine, I got pretty fucking drunk pretty quickly. From my vague recollection, I was leaning against Jordan, feeling pretty sick, and he was whispering about me being pretty and sexy and shit in my ear, rubbing my legs. After a while, I got carried by him back to my little room out of it. He locked my door, which I thought was pretty weird, but I just thought whatever. He had plopped me down in my little futon, my then bed, earlier, and after the door, came and laid next to me. At the time, I don't remember what I was thinking, but I was a silly, lonely girl, so I probably enjoyed the attention. I recall him whispering something like the other roommate being jealous of him, and how cute and tiny I was. After that, he stuck his tongue in my mouth. This creepy kind of thrust his face into mine, tongue out and attempting to pull my pajama pants down. At that point, I was like, nope, jolted and leaned away from him, saying over and over pretty loudly, "I don't want to get pregnant!" Not too sure why I said that, but he immediately stood up and left the room, leaving behind his dog tags. I never actually talked to him again after that, except for the next morning, when he begged me not to tell my brother, crying, and he left the trailer like a week later. A year later, I hear from my brother that he had gone AWOL from the army, and had been selling pot and stealing shit from friends to sell. After he left our place, he went out to California and got caught stealing and selling and using heroin. He was sent to prison, no idea how long, but any time is good time in my eyes. Before anyone asked, I didn't tell my mother, my brother, nor the police. Yes, I'm stupid for not. At the time, I wasn't angry, just confused. And I think he liked me or something like that. For some sad reason, I was still crushing a bit on him. I only realized how fucked the whole situation was a few years ago, when I was a junior, and just remembering what had happened around the beginning of that year. I told my brother Jordan had been a bit touchy with me, without going into too much details, as I'm still a bit embarrassed by my dumb kid self. Let me just say, I've never seen my brother so pissed before. I honestly hope that boy never comes around my brother again, for his sake. Sorry this turned out so long. I'm a detail sucker. Also, again, sorry if I've broken any grave Reddit rules. I'm a stupid first-time poster. Cut me some slack. I probably should have moved sooner. I had 3 creepy incidences happen over a few years at my old apartment that, in retrospect, really made me wonder why I didn't move sooner. Unfortunately, my neighbor for a brief period of time before I actually did leave probably wishes she had too. The first incident happened a few years ago. I got home from work one night around 8. It was a particularly cold night in February. But it was extremely dark out. At the time, I often forgot to leave any outdoor lights on when I left in the morning. Even if I knew I wouldn't be getting home until after dark, I lived in one of the rear apartments of a duplex, and like every other night, I pulled into the carport in the back to park. The house was on a corner lot. To enter my apartment, I used a side door that was around the corner of the house. I grabbed my laptop bag, slung my purse across my chest, and crossed the backyard, turning the corner into a little side yard between the duplex and my neighbor's house. Just before I reached my door, I heard a noise behind me. I had my keys in hand. I had pepper spray on the keychain, but I froze. I had just enough time for my stupid brain to think, please be a cat, please be a cat, whatever that is. It's moving too fast and too loudly to be a cat. Before I got slammed from behind, my glasses were knocked off and I fell face first into the ground. My laptop bag got ripped off my shoulder and whoever knocked me down tried to pull my purse off me too. Because I had worn it across my chest and then fallen on it, he couldn't yank it off despite his repeated efforts. As he ran away, I looked up and squinting, saw his figure for a moment as he ran under a streetlight. I screamed after him in this unreal voice I've never heard before from me and hope to never hear again. The police take me to do statements and help me find my glasses as well. I was actually sore for a day or two from tensing up so much in those few seconds when I heard him running up behind me. They never caught him, and I never recovered my laptop. I made sure that I left all 3 very bright security lights on any time I left my house. My neighbors laughed at me for having the place so bright, but I never came back to a dark yard for the rest of the time I lived there, knowing what I know now. That was a smart move. A few months after that, there was a period of time where my dog would get agitated in the evening when we'd be hanging out watching TV together. She let out a low, menacing growl. She's a very chill dog, and generally only barked or growled when someone's approaching or something was legitimately wrong. Because I lived on the corner, people would occasionally cut through the yard, and I assumed that was likely what was happening. One night, just as she started growling, I quickly muted the TV and heard rustling in the yard. I was terrified, but I didn't want to overreact and call the police for no good reason. I waited a good while, and after hearing nothing, I put her on a leash and stepped outside. There were footprints in the mud under the window that looked into my living room. I had those bamboo slated blinds so I couldn't see outside, but I realized that you could see imperfectly at night when the lights were on. I'm certain someone had been watching me, and it was probably been going on for some time now. At this point, I was starting to think seriously about moving, but part of me didn't want to be driven out of what was actually a great neighborhood, and I didn't want to overreact. Things happen, right? I brought some of that film from my window, so it was impossible to see inside, installed the security system, put up the security system signs, and continued to be cautious. The last incident happened sometime later. I woke up at 3 in the morning to my dog barking furiously. Again, this was a very rare occurrence, so after a few heart-pounding seconds gathering my wits, I jumped out of bed and ran to the windows in my room upstairs that easily looked down into my back and side yard. I saw nothing. After a few minutes of watching, I turned on the lights in my room and waited for a bit, continuing to watch. When I was sure that no one was hanging around, I went downstairs to double-check that things were okay, and they were. The next morning, however, I took my dog outside and noticed that someone had broken the cover of the telephone box on the side of the house where the phone lines enter the house. Someone had definitely been in my yard, and they were obviously trying to damage the phone lines. I filed a police report and decided that I didn't want to be afraid anymore. I broke my lease and moved out not long after that. The last incident at this place did not happen to me, but to a girl who moved into the other apartment just a few weeks before I moved out. Maybe 3 weeks after I left, I read a news story online that a woman in my old neighborhood had been attacked. My stomach dropped and I had a feeling it was going to be at my old place. I found some video online of the news story that showed a puddle of blood on the front porch, where I used to get mail every day. Apparently, she had gone home from work late one night, and a man came out of the bushes on the side of the house and attempted to mug her. She resisted and was shot, grazed in the neck by a bullet. She attempted to get away and ran back towards the backyard, and the man followed her, shooting her in the knee. I'm sure that once I left, the security lights I always made certain were on didn't stay on, and while I'm definitely not sure that it was the same person in all the incidences I described above, I'm fairly certain that the man who mugged me was also the man who attacked her, and that he waited for her in the same place he waited for me. I'm so glad that I moved and that I left the lights on. Apparently, I make some pretty damn good tea. This is another tale from the Java bar at Wild Oats, before it was merged into Whole Foods. I was a 19-year-old female, and had long auburn hair at the time. Background: The Gem and Mineral Show. Every year around February, Tucson hosts the Gem and Mineral Show. Apparently, it is the largest one of its kind, and attracts dealers from all over the world. Big, thick, quartz crystals as big as your arm, towering stalagmites, sculptures cut in half to display twinkling mounds of everything. Fat golden drops of amber nesting display twinkling mounds of everything. Prehistoric insects in your growing depths. Even if you weren't a geologist's kid like I am, you'd be swept away with all the wondrous items being sold at stalls. Dust and soap from giant limestone, slabs peppered with fish from ages long past, settle over everything in a grimy haze. The only true language spoken amongst the vendors is that of commerce and the occasional cough from the silt. Wads of cash exchange hands at a dizzying rate, and rare collectibles disappear in a swath of wrapping paper and plastic bags. Because it's such a lucrative business, it tends to attract those looking to make a quick buck at someone else's expense. It's not uncommon for the vendors to import their own guards to ensure the safety of their valuables. The less than affluent dealers learn that Tucson is native to various scumbags, most of which is very skilled in exchanging stolen goods for something that's easier to consume in a less than legal manner. The Wild Oats is located on Speedway, just east of Alvernon. It's a pretty central location and sits on several major bus lines. Now, during late January throughout February, it becomes a bustling hub for all the out-of-towners staying at hotels in the area. Colorful dresses from India stick out the most, but everyone else pretty much chooses to don Western attire. You can guess at where they're from by eavesdropping on conversations, or what kind of accent they have when they try their English out. Honestly, it's my favorite time of year, and I don't even mind that it's busy. I was working the late juice bar shift, and scrambling to get everyone their correct orders. My espresso bean supply was dwindling from all the double shots being ordered, but the volume died down around 6 to 7-ish. Having no immediate customers, I propped my elbows up on the counter, and people watched the checkout lines. It's a favorite pastime. Among the couple people I've been overtly staring at, there was a man in a tailored gray suit with a partially open black shirt, salt and pepper hair, and a chiseled, well-defined jawline. His skin was swarthy, and he had a neatly trimmed goatee. Now, this was before the latest series of Batman movies came out, but I swear to God, the casting director had to look at this guy. He would have played like Ra's al Ghul or something, being a very striking gentleman in his late 40s to early 50s. I remarked on his attractiveness in my mind before moving on. My glance must have caught his attention, or he had a really good hankering for the spot of tea. I see him jerk his head towards me, and two huge muscled men wearing sunglasses, tight black shirts and slacks lumber out from behind in line and escort him to my juice bar. The one that was on my left actually pulled a chair out for this man and scooted him inside. The guy on the right has his massive arms crossed and scooted a bit behind his boss. I mentioned it before, but both men were wearing their sunglasses indoors after the sun had set outside. Who does that anymore? The gentleman was very charming with his thicker Russian accent, and would have had a soft-spoken elegance to him for not the presence of his two bodyguards and a slightly menacing way he carried himself. He politely asked what kind of teas I had to offer, and said he would not be offended by the typical American assortment usually provided. After going through the usual list of Tazo teas, he sighed and responded with something along the lines of, "Surprise me." Naturally, I interpreted that as, "Don't serve me swill," or "Tweedledee and Tweedledum will break you." As an aside, my mom is a worldly woman, and I spent childhood and her adult life in England, South Kensington to be precise, but I have no idea where that's located. All I know is that she has tea protocol and preparation down to a science, and imported a good deal of that onto me. Don't scorch the tea or plunk lemon wedges in it, and may heaven help you should you dare sweeten it with honey. If it is black tea, make sure to warm the cream before adding it, or you'll make it lukewarm. When removing tea bags, do not squeeze the excess tea off with your fingers. Wrap the string around the back of a spoon twice, and gently pull, then discard immediately, etc., etc. Luckily, I had a box of tea behind the counter that wasn't Tazo. I don't recall the exact brand, but it was an import black tea, with a yellowed parchment box and black lettering. Some customers had wanted to sample it, so they let me keep the rest of the tea bags behind the counter. I warmed up some cream with a steamer while his tea was steeping, extracted the tea bag, added some rock sugar crystals, and gently poured the milk in, holding back foam with a spoon. Steering gently, I placed a napkin in front of the man and positioned the cup on his right. I noticed that during the entire preparation process, he was staring intently at my hands. Now, looking directly at my face, he brings the cup up to his mouth and takes a short sip. I remember seeing surprise on his face, but the details of whether it was a quirked eyebrow or a glance down at what he was drinking was kind of hazy. I do recall that he said something in Russian, and the bodyguard on the right detached himself and wandered over to a lady with slightly frizzy hair, chatted, and escorted her over to stand behind the gentleman. He's telling me that this is the best cup of tea he's had, and I can definitely hear excitement in his voice. He then tells me that they're looking for a girl to watch the booth at the show here, and at another place somewhere in Russia. It is at this point that my ears perk up, because I'm always on the lookout for more money and a chance of travel. Of course, I express my interest, and he hands me a business card. It was on a very heavy but vaguely transparent card stock, with stamped gold letters and a symbol of two fish intertwined. It was so beautiful, I want to share it with all of you, but I can't. On the English side, it gave an address in Singapore, and on the Russian side, I said it was something else. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about the Russian language to even type it out. Needless to say, it was very impressive, expensive, and not anything you can just buy off somewhere. It was a work of art. After handing it to me, he kind of squinted his eyes, smiled, and remarked on what pretty red hair I had. As I said before, my hair is naturally auburn, but a lot of people mistake it for being red. He then motions for the woman to approach, and starts speaking with her. I can tell it is German, even if I don't quite grasp what they were saying. I can tell it's German. Excited because I just enrolled in my first semester of German, I waited for a natural pause in their conversation to offer her a polite, "Wie geht es dir?" and smiled. This apparently shocked both of them. Before she can even respond, he holds up a fist and starts bombarding me with questions. What languages do I speak? How tall I am? Do I have a boyfriend? Now, a little taken aback, I answer a little German, some Spanish, and Japanese, maybe 5'9", and no, not yet. No Mandarin? No, sorry, I don't know why I apologized. He grinned at me and told me that he needed a governess for his children in Singapore. His wife only speaks German, and he would like me to make him tea. I had no idea that the woman he had treated so rudely was his wife, but she did not look offended at all. The way both of them were smiling was a little unsettling. This guy had complimented me in front of his wife and had offered me a position based on my ability to make a good cup of tea and my hair. Shrugging it off, I asked how long they were in town for, and he said for another week. He told me to contact the number on the card, and he would purchase the set of plane tickets. Standing up now, he once again thanked me for my tea, and responded in turn, with bodyguards on either side, and his wife trailing 5 or so feet behind. He left the store looking like a Russian mob boss. Now, I never did contact him. I told the story to my few of my coworkers and showed them the business card, and they told me he was probably in the human trafficking business. As for me, I'm not so sure. I mean, I definitely got some weird vibes off him, but he might have only wanted a tea wench. Thoughts? Get in my van. This happened before a night of drinking, so I forgot about it until this subreddit. This conversation isn't verbatim, but I tried to capture the gist of it. One night when I was a junior in college, me and my drinking buddy decided to go out for a late night booze run. It was around 11 p.m. The only place open at this time was the gas station. It was the middle of February, 20 degrees outside. None of us had a car as we had to walk. Houses on our right, streets to our left. No one on the sidewalks, no cars in the streets. When we were about a block away from the gas station, we passed this house with a brown wooden fence, which surrounded the backyard. Almost immediately, something runs into the fence, startling both of us, look at the fence, and there's a man staring wide-eyed at us from the other side, his hands and face completely visible. He must have been in his 50s or so. "I saw you guys walking down the street from 3 blocks up," he started. "You look so cold. It's warm in my van. Where are you off to?" We tried to be cool about it, act like nothing was weird. "Just heading to the gas station," as we motioned down the block. "Oh, well, why don't you get in my van? I'll take you, huh?" he offered. "Nah, it's fine, just down the block." "You sure? It's so cold," he pleaded. We declined. It's no big deal, thanks," and walked off. Thankfully, we got the booze and got home without trouble. To this day, I have no idea how that guy saw us. His house was in between houses, and there were no visible windows from the outside.